Hey, it's Tara Reed. Welcome to my studio. Today we are going to talk about pillowcases. I had a little quandary come into my inbox through Facebook, and the woman wanted to know if I could figure out or if I knew how to do a pillowcase where every fabric was directional. I have to admit, I had not done that before. Now, I have done them like this, where I have had one directional print and then just one that didn't matter, right? So the cuff is just a polka dot or whatever. This is your easiest way to go. A cuff and a print, 2 pieces, pillowcase. A little bit harder when you throw a directional print in there, but I've done that before. But I had never done it where all 3 pieces, the main, the accent, and the cuff, were all directional. Figured out the secret sauce. I've also figured out how to purposely put the cuff on the right or the left of the pillowcase. And I'll admit that in the past, I thought I was doing it correctly and ended up with it on the other side and decided I didn't care. But if you're doing if you're doing 2 for a bed, you want one on the left and one on the right like that, right? All right, so who is excited to get into this? When you're making a pillowcase, if you're using directional fabric, when you're looking at it, say from the bottom of the bed, you want the pattern, the print, to look at you. You don't want it to go sideways, like you don't want your birds this way or this way. And I have bought kits before where the store selling the kit was like, oh no, that's the way it goes. But my feeling is if nobody ever sells me a pillowcase where something's going sideways, I don't want to make a pillowcase where something's going sideways. This is the direction the print should go. The cuff needs to go that direction as well. And then I used a stripe and I wanted the stripes going this way. I didn't want brown and like one color up this way. So I had a lot of things to pay attention to when putting this together. Now, as I said before, doing one thing directional and 2 things non-directional, either solid or a random toss, is going to be a little bit easier, a little less thought, a little less fabric involved. But I'm going to show you the hardest way, and then you decide which way that you want to go. Ready to get started? All right, I'm going to do my very best to have you see everything that's going on, but these pieces of fabric are kind of big. I'm working in a smaller office. I don't have a huge studio, so bear with me. We're still going to get this done. So the first thing you need is your 3 pieces of fabric, assuming you're going to be using the main fabric, the cuff, and the optional accent piece. Now remember, the accent piece, there's kind of this pretty extra decorative piece here. You can skip it if you want to, but we are going to do it. We're going all out. The most important thing is as you lay it out each time is make sure your direction is always the same. Make sure the top of your main print is at the same place as the top of your cuff print. So these are all folded in half. Your main print is 40 inches this way with the top of the direction to the bottom, 40 inches. So it's really tall. It feels a little weird, but that's because the pillow goes in the middle. And it is 27 inches wide. My accent piece is again 40 inches high by 2 inches wide. And I cut my cuff, again, 40 inches high by 9 inches wide. So those are our 3 pieces of fabric. Now, because you're using directional fabric, you need 1 1/8 yards to get that 40-inch with a direction. Here's the quandary in my mind. So say you're only making 1 pillowcase, you're going to need 1 yard and 1/8 of this cuff fabric, but you're only going to use 9 inches of it. So you're going to have a ton left over. So hopefully you're going to have another project that you want to make out of that. Or you can make 2 pillowcases that are the alternates. And that's what we're going to end up with. Because from that 1 1/8 yards, you can cut both the main piece and a cuff piece and still have a little bit left over. Or you can check your scraps. If you have something that's really long and directional, 9 inches or wider, you can use it for the cuff, no problem. Just throwing a couple things out there. But again, cuff, 40 by 9, accent, 40 by 2, main, 40 by 27. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to take our accent fabric and our cuff fabric, and we are going to press it in half lengthwise, so matching these long ends, wrong sides together. So as you're pressing, you want to see the pretty side of your fabric. We're just going to press all that 40-inch length. So we're matching those raw edges. I'm going to do the same with the cuff. We're going to match the raw edges on the 40-inch sides, and we are going to press that in half. Once you get a hang of making pillowcases, they can come together so quickly and easily. When my son was little, he loved having different themed pillowcases. I would make him Christmas ones, Halloween, lots of fun. They make great gifts. They're also great. Sometimes people will do them for donations. Sometimes this pillowcase makes someone feel special. So let me know in the comments how and when you're going to be using pillowcases if you give this a try. I'd love to know. And now is the time we decide which side we want our cuff on. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to open your cuff fabric that we just pressed in half and place it on your workspace face up. Now, the rule of thumb is pin to the opposite side you want your cuff on. So since I already made one with the cuff on the left, I pinned everything to the right. So now, and I mean to the right when we're looking at the print. So the top of the print's this way. So this is the right-hand side of this fabric. So this time I want to make a cuff on the right-hand side. So we're going to pin everything to the left. So I'm going to take this accent strip where I have my raw edges, and I'm going to place the raw edges of the accent strip right along the left-hand side raw edge of my cuff. Okay, so just remember, if you want your cuff on the right, you pin to the left. If you want your cuff on the left, you pin to the right. That is the secret. You know what, I need to turn this around so that I'm clipping it towards myself because I can't make sure that these raw edges are lined up perfectly when I have it on the opposite side of me. Now, we're going to take our main print and we're going to put it upside down. But we first want to make sure the top of this print is at the same place as the top of this print. If you have it this way, one's going to be upside down. Okay, so this is really important. This is where you really got to pay attention to the direction. And then we're going to bring this edge, when it's upside down, and match that up with these raw edges. So we're making a sandwich. Cuff, accent piece, both raw edges. That one stays folded. Cuff is open, accent stays folded, and then the main print. So we need to get that top lined up with the edge of the cuff and also these edges over here, and then I'm going to clip them together. Now you can clip or pin, totally up to you, either way you want to go. Like I said, unless it's really precise, I'm usually a big fan of clips. They never poke me, never draw blood. Okay, so we have this really big piece, which is the main piece, our cuff, and our trim. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the burrito. So we're going to roll this fabric. We're going to fold this up towards the raw edge, but leave a little bit of space and just keep folding it. So it's like that. So we can see the whole cuff. We can see this. We can double check again that our direction is correct before we go further. Then we're just going to fold this cuff raw edge over to here. And we're going to add it to the clip sandwich. So we want to make sure we have plenty of room because we don't want to catch our main fabric when we sew this together. We're just sewing the cuff, one side of the main fabric, and the trim together. Then we're going to pull it out. All these raw edges are going to be encapsulated inside that cuff like magic. So we're just going to pull this over and add it to all of our clips, making sure all of these raw edges are lined up. Okay, so you can see that's the main thing all rolled in there. Now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we are going to sew down all these raw edges with a 1/4 inch seam. Now that we have this long tube sewn together, we are simply going to pull the main fabric outside of the cuff and we're going to flip that cuff. So the green is the cuff. I just flipped that a little bit. And then I'm just going to pull that out. So now what we have is this. You can't see the whole thing, so it's 40 inches still this way. We have the main fabric. We have the cuff on the right-hand side. We have the accent trim, and everything is going in the right direction. So we're happy dancing so far. Next, we're going to take the iron and we're going to iron this cuff out. We're going to iron this all flat. We're going to make sure the cuff is just going out really nicely. And then it's up to you if you want to do some decorative stitching here or if you just want to leave it. You could do a decorative stitch right along the edge of the cuff and leave this trim up. Or usually if I'm making them for kids, I'll do a decorative stitch here too, because I find when it goes through the laundry and they're, sleeping on that kind of hard, this ends up all wrinkled and it bugs me. And I honestly do not feel like ironing kids' pillowcases. So I usually do a decorative stitch here and a decorative stitch here, so it looks good and it all stays in place. Ironing next, and then we're getting close to done. I mean, this is simple. Then you're either going to serge it together, or I'm going to show you how to put this together with a French seam if you do not have a serger. Now, the next step is to sew these two sides together. So the bottom and this one end. And how you do that is going to depend on what kind of sewing machine you have. If you have a serger, you're going to put this together, right sides together, and then you're just going to serge here and here, turn it right side out, and you're done. I do not currently have a serger, so I'm going to show you how to do a French seam. A French seam is basically where we're going to sew that area twice, and we're going to encapsulate the raw edges on the inside. So you're going to put this together, wrong sides together, so that the pretty side is up. You want to really make sure you're matching your accent piece and your cuff, because that's the part that people are going to notice the most. So you're going to match that up, flatten that all out, get it nice and straight. I like to line it up along my grid lines. And then this is not as straight as I would like it. So I'm just going to trim a teeny bit off of this edge. And then I'm going to trim a little bit off this edge so that it is perfectly even for sewing. And this pillowcase is a little bit oversized, so don't worry about this step. It is not going to affect the ability of this thing to go onto a standard pillow. Now, because this is two pieces of fabric and I really want to make sure it stays together perfectly, I'm going to be using pins. You can use clips, but they might slip a teeny bit, so I'm a pinner on this step. What do you prefer? Are you always a pinner? Do you pin and clipper? Let me know in the comments. Okay, so we have this pin together. This is all even. We are going to sew this side and this side with a 1/4 inch seam. Now I turned the pillowcase wrong side out, and then I pressed really nicely along the two seams that we just did. So you want to make sure you have it nice and tight and nice and flat, because what we're going to do is we're now going to come back along and we're going to sew 3/8 of an inch from that edge so that the last 1/4 inch seam is encapsulated in there, never to be seen again. And while my machine has guides for a 3/8 inch seam, I'm going to use this little magnetic seam guide just to give me a little extra. See, it really yanks on there, really attaches on there. So I'm just going to line it up with the 3/8 inch mark, and it's going to go straight. Okay. It's gonna be a lot easier to just make sure I have that consistent when I'm just rubbing up against that. So it's just an easy little tool that I like to use that you might not know about. And you can find a link below the video if you're on my YouTube channel or my blog to find that if you want to grab one from Amazon. And now the moment of truth. We have done a French seam along these two edges. Now all we need to do is turn it right side out. Push those corners out. Every once in a while, you might have a little string. Don't even worry about it. Just grab it, snip it, and don't tell anybody about it. Nobody needs to know. And there we go. We just made a pillowcase with 3 directional fabrics and the cuff on the right-hand side. And it will be a perfect companion to this one, which has the cuff on the left and uses the opposite fabrics. How cute would that be on a little girl's bed? And I know exactly who I'm going to be sending it to. So if you make one of these, I would love to see, if you post it on social media, be sure to tag me. I would love to see what fabrics you use, how it came out. You can also find a printed PDF version with lots of pictures and written instructions in my Etsy shop. There will be a link below the video for that as well. Wishing you and yours sweet dreams on your handmade pillowcases.